My name is Elnora Williams. I am a long-time, over 30-year member of TVUC. My memory goes back to when our church's name was TVUC. I support and would like to encourage you to vote for the inclusion of the eighth principle of Unitarian Universalism. I am thinking that you staying connected, grounded, and holding to we, that the eighth principle will be embraced, advocated, and achieved successfully for now and for generations to come. The eighth principle comes from a feeling that we need something to renew our commitment to being a beloved community. Commitment means accountability from UUs to help each other see and dismantle signs of internalized racism. The eighth principle is an effective mechanism to ensure this to be implemented. Beloved community in the eighth principle means bringing our commitment to love higher in our consciousness, consistent with our Standing on the Side of Love campaign. And this means people of diverse racial, ethnic, educational, class, gender, abilities, sexual orientation, backgrounds, and identities come together in an interdependent relationship of love, mutual respect, and care that seeks to realize justice within the community and in the broader world. The eighth principle has the feel of optimism and real meaning. Vote yes at the June 13th congregation meeting. We can begin today to live by it. Let's renew our commitment and act.
Be ours a religion, which like sunshine goes everywhere. Its temple, all space, its shrine, the good heart, its creed, all truth, its ritual, works of love, its profession of faith, divine living.
We are here together in this holy moment, and we're grateful for the winding road that brought us to this place. We are here together in this holy moment, and we're grateful for the winding road that brought us to this place.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. To dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our great covenant.
Winds be still,
The story I have to share today is an ancient wisdom tale from India, one of the Jataka tales that are told about past lives of the Buddha, often in animal form. And this story is called The Noble Stag. Now it begins with somebody named King Brahmadutta. And King Brahmadutta of Benares was extremely fond of hunting. It was his favorite thing to do. And on the outskirts of his city was a huge forest filled with deer. One day, when the king was out hunting, he told his courtiers not to allow a single deer to escape. And so they formed a tight circle around a thicket where they knew some deer were. And they beat sticks on the ground to make noise and drive them out until they saw a stag escape. Now, the only escape route for the stag was towards the king himself, who was standing alone at the end of the path, ready. And the stag looked the king straight in the eye and made a dash right towards him. The king was kind of taken aback. This was kind of surprising, right? All of a sudden, there was a huge deer running toward him, and he hurriedly shot an arrow right towards the stag. It may not be surprising that it missed the mark. Now, there's one thing you should know about this stag in particular. It had excellent instincts, and it was very good at dodging arrows. And in fact, if an arrow was aimed at its belly, the stag would pretend to roll over and then jump up and run off once the danger had passed. So this is what happened. And when the stag rolled over, the king assumed that his arrow had found its mark. But then the stag suddenly jumped up and shot right past the king and his men. And the courtiers began to laugh. Now the king thought of himself as an excellent marksman and could not bear the taunts of his courtiers. And so he became upset, and he grabbed his sword and he set off alone into the forest in order to catch the stag. He ran as fast as he could, and he chased the stag for quite a while, and they covered a long distance. All of his other people were left far behind. Now, as the stag ran, it came upon a hole in the ground that was partially hidden by brush and branches, and the stag was careful not to run into it. It jumped right over. But the king did not see the pit in time, and what do you think happened? The king fell right into it. Now, after a while, the stag sensed that he was not being followed any longer. So he stopped, and then he realized that the king might have fallen into the pit. And the stag headed back. He went back to the pit, and he saw the king struggling for his life down in the pit. And the stag felt very sorry for the king and decided to save him, even though the king had been following him with the intention of killing him. And so he told the king not to worry and to be brave for a little while longer. And the stag then carefully lowered himself, his front half, into the pit, making sure to keep himself balanced. And the king caught a hold of his neck, and then the stag carefully climbed back out of the pit onto level ground and carried the injured king to safety. And the king thanked the noble stag profusely, and in fact asked him to return with him to his city of Benares, where they could rule together. But the stag had no interest in a kingdom and simply made one request of the king. I wonder if you might have a guess about what it was. The stag simply requested that the king rule his kingdom wisely and well, with kindness and compassion. And then the noble stag looked once more at the king and then turned and disappeared into the forest. And so with a grateful heart, the king returned to Benares and announced that from that day on, all of his subjects were to live with kindness and compassion for all beings. That night, the king went to bed a changed man.
Now, this is your part. We have a responsive reading. And your part is real easy. It's we are the church. So when I point to you, say, we are the church. We are the church. We are the young mother with a high-risk pregnancy who cannot get the vaccine. We are the single person who has been living in isolation for over a year. We are the parents whose children are too young for the vaccine. We are the empty nesters longing for companionship. We are the newly vaccinated teenagers eager for youth groups. We are the teens who are not old enough to be vaccinated. We are the elderly in nursing homes longing for visitors. We are the healthcare professionals and frontline workers weary and in need of rest. We are the ones who have been resting in place, bursting with energy. We are the ones who want to be able to sing together again. We are the members of the small group ministries longing to reunite. We are the immunocompromised. We are the infants born this year. We are the memories of those who died this year. We are those who are celebrating new freedoms. We are those grieving our losses. We are the ones who are together in our building at this moment. We are the ones who are watching online. We are the ones committed to building a free faith where no one is left behind. So be it. So be it.
Joy. Our thoughts and prayers are with Jerry Bone and Elaine Coogan, as both Elaine's parents died of COVID in the hospice less than a week apart. Please hold their family in the light. We'd like to offer congratulations to Lee Cooper, the daughter of Adrian Yates and George Cooper of blessed memory, on her marriage to William Swisser in an outdoor wedding on the banks of the Tennessee River in Friendsville. In the 19th century, they said Unitarians believe in the fatherhood of God, the brotherhood of man, and the neighborhood of Boston. So, Lee and Will shall begin their married life in a very charmed neighborhood. Another joy is that we had our first service in the church on Wednesday night. There will be another Vesper service on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Also, if someone you know, or if you yourself need to talk to someone in the spiritual hotline or in the hotline call-in Tuesday and Thursday, the number 865-297-3155 from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., please call. We need people to know that we always are with them and we stand ready to help them. Thank you. Join me in prayer. As the leaf unfurls, as plants open up, as trees get their leaves, so a new beginning starts in spring. We are blessed that our church has started its new beginning, its opening, its celebration of life by starting to slowly open to the world. We are thankful we have people who are helping us and devising ways that we can come together safely. Please help the stricken, the people who are still ill, the people who need your touch, people who need to know that we are still with them. Allow them to know that we stand ready to help, to aid, to ease the opening of our church and the feelings that may arise during that time. Thank you for the days that we have, the wonderful moments we have, and ask us to remember that we care for all people, for all times, and for all places, and that we seek to be open and available for everyone who needs us. Be with us, guide us, love us, so that we in turn can love, guide, and lead people to the world that we know we can make, the world that we can build, and the world that we will create. Amen.
We are not our own, earth forms us, human leaves on nature's growing vine, fruit of many generations, seeds of life divine. We are not alone, earth names us, past and present, peoples near and far, family and friends and strangers, show us who we are. Therefore let us make thanksgiving, and with justice willing and aware, give to earth and all things living liturgies of care. Let us be a house of welcome, living stone upholding living stone, gladly showing all our neighbors we are not our own.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us today at Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Claudia Presley, and I'm the Director of Administration here. Today is a Share the Plate Sunday. What that means is that any contribution that comes in today that is not marked as a pledge will be split between the General Operating Fund of TVUUC and the Share the Plate organization for today. Today's organization is the Appalachian Community Fund. You'll be hearing from their director in just a few minutes, but let me give you some information on how to give. You can give by going to tvuuc.org/give, or you can text give to the number 73256, type in TVUUC and the amount that you would like to give. So once again, we thank you for joining us, and we hope that you have a wonderful day.
My name is Margot Miller. I use she, her pronouns. Today I'm standing on the land of Cherokee, this Cherokee land that we're standing on right now. We just so happen to call it Knoxville, Tennessee. So I also want to acknowledge the land that I'm standing on right now. I have to tell you, I'm so happy and excited to be here, especially this being the first day back. I was teasing my office mate, Walter Davis. I said, Walter, please don't let me just stand up there and tell a bunch of jokes and get giddy, because it's so exciting to be vaccinated and to be out and about in the world and to get to fellowship and get to go out and meet people. So I'm very excited to be here and have this opportunity to talk to you a little bit about the organization that I work with, which is Appalachian Community Fund. First off, happy Pride Month, everybody. This is June, happy Pride Month. But I'm the director at Appalachian Community Fund, which is a nonprofit organization that makes grants for social justice efforts, not only in Knoxville, but throughout the Central Appalachian region. We believe in supporting change, not charity work. That is our mantra, change, not charity. So the story about giving a man a fish and all this, teach him to fish, we want to go a little bit further than that. We'd much rather make sure that he has a fishing pole, that he has access to a boat, that he has access to clean water to fish in, and that, possibly he could have a cooperative that he has with his community where they could later on sell that fish and, bring economic empowerment to his community. So change, not charity is our mantra. One of the funds that we have, and particularly that I like to focus and let you all know that all the donations that come in from the Share the Plate will go toward our work with the LGBT community. And right now, in addition to our LGBTQ fund, which is a fund, pooled funds that support organizing efforts for the LGBTQ community. But we also have a program called Out in Appalachia, and that's where your very own congregation member, Walter Davis, is sort of the lead for us for that, for our Out in Appalachia group. We believe in bringing people together. We started that program off by convening folks throughout the region just to talk about the needs and the wants and the desires of the LGBT communities. We also talked about the challenges that face the communities. So it started off in the spirit of convening, gathering information, sharing that information, and also providing funding to the needs that they identified. So Walter is helping to carry on that work with Out in Appalachia. We're very grateful to have him as part of our staff. But one of the things I thought about today, I wanted to come up with a whole list of all the bad stuff that happens to the LGBT community. We all know that bad stuff. Instead of repeating all the bad stuff that we already know, the laws and all the other stuff that's going on, I just wanted to lift up some of the good things that some of our grantee partners are doing instead. It's like the work that people are doing providing mental health hotlines to young people that might be suffering right now. We all know how tough it was with kids. Some of the parents know how tough it was too. I'm not saying the parents didn't have it, whatever, but a lot of the kids were suffering during the COVID crisis, and particularly some of the trans youth. So the whole thing of setting up hotlines, for mental health hotlines for young folks in the region to call, just to have someone to talk to, that's very important. We also have supported in the past groups that encourage pride and visibility within the community with a lot of our small town pride events. We saw such an influx year before last of a lot of small communities, some of them for the first time starting off pride events, and we were very happy to support that work. We had Pikeville Pride, we had Tri-City Pride, we supported the Pride Community Center. Trans Empowerment, the Trans Youth Empowerment, that's here in Knoxville. A lot of arts groups that support the works with LGBTQ youth. Carita House in West Virginia. Idle Dandy Arts. And I've already mentioned Pikeville Pride, but there's a lot of folks out there that are really working, putting their blood, sweat, and tears in the effort to making sure that the community is supported. So I just want you to know that any donation that you make today will go to support our work in the LGBT community. I myself particularly have a heart and fondness for youth. I'm not going to designate everything to youth, but I really want to focus on our youth because they are the future, as we all know. Whitney Houston didn't make up that song without whatever. That there is some truth to that. And I don't want to talk too long, but if you want any more information about Appalachian Community Fund, you can go to our website, which is appalachiancommunityfund.org. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, the Twitter. We just have all of those social media handles, so it won't be too hard to find us. And also, we encourage folks that might be interested in supporting the community to also join our our Facebook group called Out in Appalachia. And if you have any questions about that, you can always reach out to Walter Davis at AppalachianCommunityFund.org, and he can share that information with you all. But thank you so much for allowing me to come on this first day. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much.
If music be our food of love, sing on, sing on, sing on, sing on, till I am filled with joy, for then my listening soul you move, for then my listening soul you move with pleasures that can never cloy. Your eyes, your ear, your tongue declare that you are music everywhere. Your eyes, your ear, your tongue declare that you are music everywhere. Pleasures invade both eye and ear, so fierce, so fierce, so fierce, the transports all they woo, and all my senses feasted on, and all my senses feasted on, though yet the treat is only sound, sure I must perish by your charms, unless you save me in your arms. Sure I must perish by your charms, unless you save me in your arms.
In the movie Head of State, the comedian Chris Rock plays the President of the United States, who ends every one of his speeches by saying, "God bless America and nobody else." As always, this kind of satire is meant to be humorous, but it's also meant to make an important and serious point, that sometimes when we love someone or love our country, we are tempted to forget about everybody else. Religion, which is meant to cultivate empathy toward others, compassion toward others, inspire us to work for peace and goodwill for all people. Instead, our love can become too focused on one thing, one nation alone. Our current president ends his speeches by saying, "God bless America and may God protect our troops." The statement is a blending of religion and nationalism and militarism, and it can be a dangerous combination. So today I want to reflect on those three ingredients: religion, militarism, and nationalism. But in the wake of Memorial Day, I also want to reflect on what are some of the positive values that we can take on reflecting on that way of ending speech. May God protect our troops, even if it has real dangers involved. A few years ago, I went to a parade in downtown Knoxville, Tennessee, and there were many floats. And one float came down the street, and it kind of surprised me because there on top of the float was Jesus of Nazareth. He had long hair, a beard, a robe, and he was flanked by representatives of all the major parts of the American military, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Marines. And I remember thinking, this is kind of crazy. This is kind of crazy. And a number of years ago, I went to a holiday program at my daughter's high school when she was in high school, and I used air quotes for holiday because it was It was a strange combination of Christmas carols followed by the theme songs of the major branches of the American military. So Joy to the World might be followed by Anchors Aweigh. And Angels We Have Heard on High might be followed by From the Halls of Montezuma. And O Little Town of Bethlehem by The Army Keeps Rolling Along. And Silent Night followed by Off We Go into the Wild Blue Yonder. I remember looking around at the audience and wondering, am I the only one who thinks this is crazy? Am I the only one that thinks this is really odd? Because the Jesus I learned about in Sunday school taught things like, blessed are the peacemakers. Love your enemies. Bless those that curse you. Turn the other cheek. Those who live by the sword shall die by the sword. The Jesus I learned about in Sunday school bears very little resemblance to the Jesus I saw on the float in the downtown parade or in the program, the holiday program. The prophet said, a bruised reed he will not break, a smoldering wick he will not snuff out. Jesus embodied that power made perfect in weakness, that strength that is found in gentleness. Now, when I was a kid, and maybe you were like me when I was a kid, when I was a kid, I didn't like different things on my plate to mix together. I didn't like my mashed potatoes and my peas to get mixed together, or my peas to get mixed with my mashed potatoes. And that's the way I feel about Jesus and the military. I don't like them to be mixed together. That's how I feel about Christmas carols and military anthems. I want to keep those separate on my plate. When John Buehrens, the Reverend John Buehrens, a former minister of this church, was president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, he said that we have in our denomination a pragmatist tradition and a pacifist tradition. We have a church that includes military veterans and conscientious objectors, those who signed up for service in the armed forces and those who signed up in the Peace Corps. However, one of the things I think we all have in common is we know that if we mix religion and nationalism and militarism, it can undo the work that we are all trying to do together to work for peace. On Memorial Day, I often read a poem by Archibald MacLeish, and I shared it on social media this year, and it offers my understanding of the meaning of Memorial Day. He wrote, "The young dead soldiers do not speak. Nevertheless, they are heard in the still houses. Who has not heard them? They have a silence that speaks for them at night, and when the clock counts, they say, 'We were young, we have died, remember us.' They say, 'We have done what we could, but until it is finished, it is not done.' They say, 'We have given our lives, but until it is finished, no one can know what our lives gave.' They say, 'Our deaths are not ours, they are yours. They will mean what you make them.' They say, 'Whether our lives and our deaths were for peace and a new hope or for nothing, we cannot say. It is you who must say. We leave you our deaths. Give them their meaning. We were young,' they say. 'We have died. Remember us.' In the Unitarian Universalist Church, we do remember them. And it's our responsibility to make sure that their lives and their deaths were for peace and a new hope and not for nothing. When the president says, 'May God protect our troops,' he's making a risk. It's risky to mix religion and militarism and nationalism together, but he is also raising an issue that we need to consider. Because my stepbrother, Kyle George, was career Army, a military veteran who retired but served in Iraq and watched how that unfolded. And during that war, he said to me, "The United States is not at war. It's the United States military that is at war, and the people of America aren't even paying attention, are completely oblivious." That's how one soldier feels. And so when the president says, "May God protect our troops," perhaps we would be wise to say, "May God protect our troops from our obliviousness. May God protect our troops from our lack of attention to the issues of the day and the consequences of our national choices. May God protect our troops from our silence when we should be speaking up. May God protect our troops from us and not them. May God protect our troops from the people of the United States of America." Now, Reed Franks loves to tell a story, a very good story, about the sergeant at a boot camp. And he's sort of breaking in the new recruits. And so he asks them, he says, I'm going to take a vote. How many of you want to run 20 laps? And how many of you want to run 2 laps? Raise your hand if you want to run 20 laps. No one raises their hands. Raise your hand if you want to run 2 laps. Everybody raises their hand. And so the drill sergeant says, "Everybody run 20 laps. You're here to defend democracy, not practice it." In other words, if we don't like what our troops are doing, don't blame them. Don't blame them. It's our job. It's our job to practice democracy. It's our job to vote. It's our job to be informed. It's our job to advocate for responsible policies. Now, in the American South, and this is one of the things that why I wanted to talk about this, because American South, there's often this fine line between respect and reverence for our troops. Respect and honor, and kind of a reverence that means we can't question or challenge. Sometimes when local politicians create a street called Honor Our Troops Drive, it can be an effort to stifle criticism. It can be the same thing as a shut your mouth drive. Shut your mouth drive. And we who live in the South, where so many soldiers died fighting for the Confederacy, fighting for slavery, fighting to extend slavery, we know we do not honor our troops when we dishonor our conscience. That we have to be willing to question. We can't just follow in line. We can't follow in line. When a retired general suggests we need a coup in America, that we need to become a third world country, we don't honor his service by dishonoring our conscience. In 1871, the United States Senator Carl Schurz grew tired of that toxic jingoism that so often gets framed in that phrase, "my country, right or wrong." And he turned it around. He said, "My country, right or wrong, my country, when right, to be kept right, when wrong, to be set right." Last week I watched, if you are PBS watchers, and I think you are, many of you are, there's a new documentary about the Christian evangelist Billy Graham in Knoxville. Knoxville makes it into that video. There is film footage of a religious rally that Billy Graham had in Neyland Stadium. And this was in the midst of the Vietnam War and the height of the Vietnam War. But I think on the minds of many students was it right after many students had been shot at Kent State. Some of whom had been protesting and some of whom had just been walking to class. And it was in the recent aftermath of the invasion of Cambodia. And there was Billy Graham standing beside President Richard Nixon, sort of encouraging religious fervor and devotion. To be fair to Billy Graham, he did live long enough to really regret his alliance with Richard Nixon. And he did begin to re-examine his uncritical, and that's important, uncritical nationalism. And he became active in efforts to work for world peace, including opposing the nuclear arms race and advocating for policies to prevent a potential nuclear holocaust. And so he grew from a narrow theology focused on one country alone to a larger thought of God. When President Woodrow Wilson made his declaration of war for the war that would become World War I, he spoke to a joint session of Congress, and people yelled and cheered and applauded. And after the speech, one of his aides found him alone in a room, ghostly white and pale. And when the aide asked him what was wrong, he said, "Think of what they were applauding. My message was a message of death for our young men. How strange it seems to applaud that." Woodrow Wilson's words remind us that when we mix religion and nationalism and militarism, we can forget what war is. We get amnesia. We forget what it is. We treat it like a football game or some athletic contest instead of what it really is. And that's why the Tao Te Ching, the Chinese scriptures, say, when we fight a war and win it, we should observe victory like a funeral, because that is what war is. My friends, let me speak to this moment in time, this moment that we're in. We are slowly emerging from a global pandemic that has cost more American lives than World War I, World War II, and the Vietnam War combined, and so many other lives of people in so many other nations around the world. And by our shared work together, by our courage and willingness to take risks and shut this building down and keep this community safe, we flattened the curve and we saved lives. And I know this to be true because I have friends who are very conservative, who go to very conservative churches, and I know how many memorial services that they've been to, in-person memorial services. So today, when a very small portion of us are beginning to come back and meet in this sanctuary in person for the first time, it is tempting to declare victory. But today I am mindful of Ellen Hendricks, a member of our church who lost her husband, Gary Hendricks, this year, leaving 2 children without a father. Her husband, who made it through Vietnam, did not make it through COVID-19. Today, I am mindful of all the people in our congregation and beyond who are still on the healthcare front lines, working tirelessly to bring this pandemic to an end. Today, I am mindful of the members of this church who have lost loved ones, who've had their families decimated in the last few weeks. The last few weeks. And today I am mindful of a dear personal friend. A dear personal friend here in Knoxville who is in ICU on a ventilator with COVID-19. Today I'm mindful of every soldier who died in the last few days or the last few minutes of a war so close to reaching the peace. So today, we must resist the temptation to stand on top of an aircraft carrier with a banner over our heads that says mission accomplished. Because there's too much work to do. We have seen that, and we know it never plays out well. We have seen that, and we know it doesn't play out well. But let me give you a word of hope. Let me give you a word of hope, because although our work is not finished, we are committed to moving forward together with no one left behind and no one left out, because we are the church. We are committed to moving forward together today. We want to move together as a group toward the day when we can hear a baby cry in this sanctuary again. And we're doing it because we are committed to the day when we can have an intergenerational play on that stage, and we will fear no virus and fear no man, because we are committed to moving forward toward the day when we will be able to have a coffee hour again and share food at a potluck again and be able to have a buffet line down the hall again and be able to have weddings again and be able to have memorial services again and be able to have child dedications again and be able to have concerts again. And we are moving forward toward the day when we will be able to hear our choir sing again, because our mission is not accomplished yet. Our work is not over. But I have a deeper appreciation for the poetic words than the poetic meaning of the words of that 19th century Unitarian abolitionist, Julia Ward Howe, words that so often were quoted by Dr. Martin Luther King. "Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of a better day that is not yet here, but will be. And on that day, we will be able to join hands without using any hand sanitizer. Join hands without using any hand sanitizer, and we'll all be able to say, God bless America and everybody else, because Amen."
This is my soul, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and wide. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's eyes are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover, leaf, and pine. But other lands have sunlight too, and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, the God of all the nations, a song of peace
As you prepare to leave this sacred space, pack away a piece of this church in your heart. Wrap it carefully like a precious gem. Carry it with you through the joys and sorrows of your days. Let its gentle glow strengthen you, warm you, remind you of all that is good and true until we gather here again in this place, in this sacred place of love. We are the church.
Let people living in all lands declare that fear and pain are gone. Rise above differences and stand in love and understanding one.
As we leave this sacred place, let's find ways to stay connected. If you're ready for in-person worship experience, come to our 7 o'clock service on Wednesday night. If you're fully vaccinated, and help volunteer to create a service that will be broadcast online. Or sign up for our newsletter so you can learn more about in-person and online activities. Let's stay connected in this time of physical distancing and eventual reunion. We are the church.